I will tell you, when it comes to cover letters, 5 years ago, I would have said they're a waste of time. But I am finding with the volume, with the internet, people can apply via text messaging. The cover letter is becoming really important, and it does help recruiters understand A, what you're looking for, and B, why you're interested in the position.
Welcome to this special episode of Security Cleared Jobs, Who's Hiring and How. Hear insights from recruiters with ANSER, Los Alamos National Lab, and TekSynap, recorded live on the scene at a recent Cleared Job Fair recruiter panel. Here's your moderator, Bob Wheeler.
We're at the ClearedJobs.Net job fair here in Tysons Corner, Virginia. This is an all clearances job fair. We're going to be talking today with some great talent acquisition leaders about the hiring process. My name is Bob Wheeler. Like I said, I've been with ClearedJobs.Net for 10 years now. We've got Leslie Murphy. She's from a company called ANSER, which also stands for Analytics Services. She's got decades of experience. She's worked at companies both big and small. So she's got a wealth of experience in talent acquisition. We've also got Kearstin McGinnis right there in the middle. She's from TekSynap. Official title is VP of Employment. She's been there for 7 years now, I think. She's done a lot of work with military transition stuff. She worked as the transition coordinator, so lots of experience there. And then on the far end over there, we've got Larry Thompson. He's a talent acquisition specialist from Los Alamos National Labs. And I'm really, really happy to have him here because National Labs is a very different animal than private organizations.
Los Alamos Laboratories is a consortium of Battelle, the University of California, and Texas A&M University.
Okay, so it's a big thing, but it's very unique. That's one of the reasons that we're excited to have him here. So we're going to kick it off now. Let's talk about the hiring process. So first of all, we'll start with Leslie. How many jobs they try to fill? How many open recs are they typically dealing with at a time?
Per recruiter at ANSER, our recruiters have anywhere from 7 on a really light day or a week to 20.
Okay.
So it really varies.
Are they typically, in your organization, are they typically in the same job field, or can they be widely spread around different job fields?
The way our recruiting team is organized is they support specific lines of business. Mm-hmm. So all the recruiters really understand the business.
Gotcha.
Versus I'm a specialist in just this job family.
Yeah.
They are specialists and have a deep understanding of the businesses they support.
Gotcha. So 7 to 20 on average. Kearstin, what about the TekSynap? How your recruiting team? What are they looking at?
We'd love to see 7 recs.
So would they.
But our recruiters across their contracts are supporting about 30 to 40 requisitions at a time. And those could be very similar job fields, or they could be everything from a help desk technician all the way through a solutions architect. Yeah. So they could be looking at a wide range.
So any difference for your team, Larry?
We're kind of unique again because of what we do. We have our recruiting spread out across different directorates. So each directorate has a specific assignment of recruiters that recruit specifically. For example, I lead a team of recruiters in what we call STE, which is Science, Technology, and Engineering. That ranges from engineering, IT, Intel, cyber, machine learning, physics, chemistry, biology. So all of the really hard sciences is what my team recruits for. Now, we have right now a team of 4 of us, and we traditionally have anywhere from 5 requisitions to up to 15. But you have to understand, these are not a generic job. These are very specific positions. Most require a master's, most a PhD. So it's a very unique environment to recruit in. But we make a judicious effort to review every resume that comes in, and a team does that. So we don't have the typical internet black hole.
Yeah. We're going to talk about some of those things in a little bit, but of those recs, does your team support more than one hiring manager?
Yes.
So how many hiring managers might one recruiter deal with at any given time?
They're probably going to be supporting anywhere from 5 to 20.
Wow.
But again, our roles are so specific, the chances of them supporting 20 at one time is kind of
sure.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But when we do have a hiring manager that we're supporting, we engage very closely with them. Mm-hmm. And everything from developing the job description, posting that requisition, reviewing the candidates, That's all interaction, and it's a collaborative effort.
Kearstin, what about your team there? How many hiring managers might a recruiter be dealing with at any given time?
They're working with about 10.
Leslie, any difference in that?
Not difference in number, really. I think very much a little bit like Los Alamos, because our recruiters support specific lines of business or directorates. They work with just those hiring leaders, so they know them incredibly well. Like I said, they know the business, they partner with them well. So on average, it's probably about 8.
So, and the reason I bring this up, so we've kind of put together a little mental picture of what it's like as a recruiter now. And you realize that one recruiter that you're talking to, and you're talking about a specific job at this job fair, they are dealing with that more than one job, but also you might have said, hey, you know what, I saw that your company has got this other job. What do you know about that? This is one of the reasons that they may or may not know about that other job, because it could be a rec that's another recruiter handles completely. And then the fact that they've got different relationships with hiring managers, it can also explain sometimes why you say, you know what, my buddy, she went there and she got an interview really fast and the other person didn't, or something like that, because they dealt with the same recruiter. Why is the process different? I mean, before you guys were in leadership, you were recruiters. So thinking back to your old days, sometimes how frustrating can it be as a recruiter to have to manage multiple hiring managers? Go ahead, Kearstin. You laugh first.
I do. Because I always use the analogy. Who has watched the show Friends? All right, Ross, Rachel, Chandler, they're taking the couch up the staircase, and he keeps yelling, pivot. We pivot 50,000 times a day.
What kind of things go into making it faster or slower, maybe, when you're talking about hiring managers? Can you think of some things?
Yeah, for those of you who might be PMP certified or run Scrum, there's always project creep, scope creep. You've seen it all. And recruiting is kind of like that, right? A position can open and you apply that day, literally the day it opens. And the recruiter talks to you, and then it's sent to the hiring leader for review. That hiring leader, especially in federal contracting, might be at a conference. They might be working on something, and so they may not get to it for 3 or 4 days. And from your perspective, you're like, okay, what happened? What's going on? And then you set up the interview. Then you've got to coordinate your schedule with that person's schedule, whether it's video, whether it's in person, and maybe there's multiple interviews. So depending on the position, and especially in federal contracting, if you have to have additional interviews with the federal government as well as us, it can vary greatly.
Any difference on your end dealing with the hiring managers? How does that relationship sometimes make things go maybe faster, slower, different?
One way we've tried to mitigate that to make sure it goes very smoothly and as quickly as possible is we have what we call dedicated intake meetings. This is when the recruiter or recruiters meet with the hiring manager or the hiring committee. Sometimes we have a hiring committee. Before that job's posted, a lot of times hiring managers have in their head what they want, but they don't translate that well on paper. And you get down the road and you're recruiting, and they go like, well, why are you sending me these people? Because they don't need what I'm looking for. Well, this is what you told me. So we try to mitigate that process, and we have a dedicated meeting where we nail everything down. What are the minimum requirements? What are the desired qualifications? When is the funding hitting for this? When can we start moving forward with this? We also map that back to our diversity goals and initiative. So by doing that, in my experience, I've done this a long time, that cuts through a lot of the obstacles that you generally run across. Yeah. And because everyone's on the same page knowing what you're recruiting.
The reason I bring this up is because the reason that the hiring manager has an opening is because there's not enough people to do the job. So now that person is responsible for a program that needs to still make the mission with less people, so they're trying to do extra work and so to get on those schedules. And I'll just throw this to anybody, this is mostly a yes or no question. Any issues when somebody, a job seeker says, when can I expect to hear back? Or what's the next step? Those types of questions. Do you have any problems with that when job seekers ask those questions?
None.
And a lot of times the recruiters are going to tell you those things anyway, but if you didn't catch it, or if you're not sure, at the end of an interview, when should I expect to hear back? And then if they say, you should hear back by next Thursday, and it becomes next Friday, they're not mad at you for calling back and saying, hey, just wanted to check. Let's see here. One of the questions, this is something that Larry, that you had kind of began to touch on a little bit, so I want to get all of y'all's feedback on this. there could be a difference between a position that is a hard to fill position because it's hard to find that person versus a hard to fill position because I have so many applications I've got to wade through which ones are the most qualified, right? What's the difference from the recruiting standpoint like, and is there anything that the job seekers should know about understanding how things might go different if you're trying to fit yourself into a hard to fill versus a hard to determine the right candidate? Let's start with you in the middle, Kearstin.
So hard to fill. If your background is very niche, we'll say high level clearance, you have some certifications, you've been within your field for 5 to 10 years, we consider that pretty niche and competitive in some cases. Read the job description, read through what the company has provided you, and try to put that stuff at the top. Recruiters spending the first time through about 7 to 10 seconds on your resume. That's quick, but our eyes are trained. We've been doing this for a while. But if you put those items at the top, that text message out to schedule the interview or the email or whatever the process is for that particular company is going to come a lot faster. If we're scanning that resume and it's all at the bottom, it possibly could get missed when we move on to the next candidate. If I open or a team member opens a help desk position, we're guaranteed to get almost 550 candidates in the first 72 hours. That's a lot. And we go through every resume. So in that particular case, the same advice stands. Put at the top exactly what you want to do. That could be a summary at the top. It could be some bullet pointed lists. But I guess the key there is to tailor your resume for every job you're applying for.
If you are a very tough to find person, very super highly skilled, super high clearances, you might have a recruiter that has enough time to ask you more questions like, did you ever do this? Can you add this to your resume? Can you do more? Whereas if she's got 550 resumes in 3 days, she's not going to say, I wonder if, right? Larry, anything to add on the differences between tough to find and tough to determine?
Well, in my directorate, it's actually, it's mostly tough to find. Volume is not typically an issue, but in other parts of the lab, yes, we do have a lot of people applying. My best advice is to anyone that's applying, look at what the minimum requirements for the job are, and then tell how your skills, experience, and education have prepared you to fulfill that role. And what I tell everyone, at the lab, a cover letter is just as important as your resume because we're wanting to know everything about you as much as possible. And I tell everyone, go out to the job description, look at the minimum quals, cut that out, paste that into your cover letter, and then underneath every category say, this is my experience, these are my skills, this is my education, this is how that's prepared me to fulfill this role. And once you do that, you have actually already answered a lot of the questions that the hiring manager or hiring committee is going to ask you. So that really fast tracks you into hopefully getting an interview.
Yeah. Leslie, anything to add on the difference between those two types of jobs and also cover letters too? It's an interesting thing that Larry brought up.
Yeah, I do think it's important, and this is where you could put 25 people in talent acquisition up here and we will all give you some different advice on about your resume. So that is just the fact. However, ensuring that your resume talks about your successes, what you've done, and quantifying it is critical. The worst thing someone can do is take the job description from their current job and put it in their resume and say, okay, now I expect the recruiter to understand everything I've accomplished. I will tell you, when it comes to cover letters, 5 years ago, I would have said they're a waste of time. But I am finding as people are becoming more proficient at writing cover letters, and especially with the volume, with the internet, people can apply via text messaging. The cover letter is becoming really important, and it does help recruiters understand A, what you're looking for, and B, why you're interested in the position. So it does fast track you a little bit more for us when there's a good cover letter.
I think that's fascinating. 10 years ago, everybody told me when I was getting out of the military, cover letters are dead. If you do it, it makes you look old. 10 years later, it's like, you know what? They're the cool thing now. They're what's going on. So people will tell you different stuff. I would say that no one ever is going to not hire you because you have a cover letter. Now, if you screw up your cover letter, it's all goofy. That could be a different thing.
Well, at the lab, actually, if you read the fine print, it will say, please include your resume and a detailed cover letter.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Good question. If you're spending about 7 to 10 seconds on resumes, how many seconds are you spending on a cover letter?
That's a good question.
Well, first of all, the resume is going to entice someone to want to look at your cover letter.
So they're looking at resume first.
Yeah.
Cover.
Yeah.
You're going to look at the resume first. First of all, what I'm looking for when I'm looking at that resume, does he meet the educational requirements? Okay, what is he saying in that little paragraph at the top that is kind of the summary of this is who I am? You look at that very quickly, and then the first thing you're going to do is what is he currently doing? What is his current role? And once you meet those 3 categories, then they're going to look at the cover letter. And generally the person that is really wanting to look at that cover letter is the hiring committee or the hiring manager.
One of the things about the 7 seconds, the stat that it's been out there forever, and if I flipped it around, I could say, how many seconds would it take you to decide if you were going to want to read the job description even further? Because we look at job postings that are out there all the time, and you can look pretty quickly, nope. Because really the 7 seconds is not the difference between yes and no, it's between maybe and no. You know, it's pretty easy, like no full scope poly. Well, I don't need to read the rest of it type thing. So it doesn't really, they're not making the yes decision in 7 seconds. They're making the no decision. It's the same way with job postings. But I think it's a great question because I think what Larry said is interesting that for a lot of cases, though, the cover letter is not first. They're not going to sit down and read this. Oh, look at this resume. Let me take a look at it. Just the opposite. Yeah.
Can I ask one question about what you just said? You said, okay, no full scope poly. Agencies that I work for have told me not to put full scope poly specifically. So it's a bit of a conundrum.
So I'm going to massage your question to throw it to these 3.
Yeah.
Reputable organizations can look at a resume, and again, if you've got the right skills, then they're going to call and they're going to get into that. But we'll go with Leslie and work that way. That's a good question about how do you put your clearance on there, and can you say the poly part? What's your experience? You've been around the block a little
Yeah, it depends. I will say this. The last 3 security FSOs that I worked with all gave me a different answer on that. So you're right. You have to be careful. But also what you said, Bob, is true. The recruiters know what they're looking for. And a good recruiter, they will call you and ask you. They're very sensitive to that, especially when it comes to that full scope poly. They read it different ways, and if there's even an inkling you might have one, they're going to pick up the phone and call you because it's such a sought after skill. Does it help us? Absolutely when it's so blatant, but they know how to read that variation however you're comfortable putting it on your resume. But really it comes down to the conversation with the recruiter.
Is there anything that the 2 of you want to add to what she said?
I would mimic that, and your cover letter is different than your resume and goes different places.
Yeah.
Larry, anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, all of our positions, when we post them, it tells the specific clearance that is required. So that is part of the minimum qualifications. So in other words, don't apply for that position if you cannot meet that level of clearance.
That's a great point. When you're looking at the resume, if you want to tailor your resume, speak the language that they're speaking in the job application. If the job application says, the posting says full scope poly, you might want to consider putting it on there. If it says favorable polygraph adjudication, you might want to use that language for those folks. So it's always about going the way that they want you to go.
Because when you submit that cover letter and your resume, it goes into a security system.
Yeah.
So it's not out there for the world to see.
Yeah. The whole idea of now it's in your talent acquisition pool type thing, we'll retain your resume. Do you guys really have a place to go back and look? And how does that work? Remember, their job, they get paid to find people to put in the seats as fast as possible. So they're not looking to slow things down. But let's start with Larry, because you're the national lab, so I don't know if your system's much different than what I'm assuming the private sector part is. So what's it like in your ATS type system?
Well, I mean, our system is based in Oracle.
Okay.
So it's, I think, a very simplistic application process. Plus we have, when you apply, you're also asked to join our talent community. Mm-hmm. So let's say you come in, you fill out, the initial application, and that doesn't work for you. If you join the talent community, that is like a reserve where hiring managers, recruiters can go and say, hey, let's look in the talent community first to see if someone's a unique match for this specific position. We're set up like most recruiting systems are.
So it's very similar.
You create an account, you apply online, you can upload documents, you can come back later if you want to revise your resume, you can revise that resume, and you may even want, and of course, because people that are applying are going to have multiple cover letters, then that cover letter is structured toward that specific position, and you can upload that as well. But then you can join the talent community, and like I said, that is a way for you to get better representation across the organization, just instead of that unique.
So we'll go with Leslie and then go to Kearstin on the same thing. But if you're already in the talent community, but you see a new job posting, should you just chill and wait, hope they look for it, or should you reapply or whatever? So with Leslie first and Kearstin.
So to answer your question directly, yes. All our recruiters, the first place they go, anytime a position is opening up, or anytime they're having a conversation with a hiring leader who says, by the way, I'm going to open this job in 3-4 weeks, whatever, the first place they go is our internal database. The reason for that is you've already expressed interest. Why would we make it harder and go have to hunt somebody down? So the first place we always go is into our internal database, and we at ANSER hire a lot of people who are in our system already because of that. The other thing is talent communities are very specific to what's called the applicant tracking system that a company uses, right? So at ANSER, we don't use it right now. We just haven't turned it on because we're finding great success of our recruiters being able to reach out through the entire database what's in there. I definitely think you should join talent communities because it gives an alert within the system that, hey, this person's really interested in this company. If you're part of a talent community and you see a great job, do not wait and think they'll call me. They probably will, but be proactive and show your interest right away, because that's going to push it up even to the top of what the recruiters are seeing every day. So from a job seeker standpoint, never wait, ever.
Definitely have the same ideals here. I would take the step further with applying, and if you've already built a relationship with a recruiter, whether that's through a different interview process you had or through LinkedIn or a different social media site, reach out to them and let them know that you applied. Because I'll go back to the 550 help desk people. We may not get to it in that 550 before we have enough people that we're going to send forward for the hiring manager, but you make it to the top of the pile, or at least the top of someone's mind if you've done the extra reach out. Call, email, text, throw up smoke signals.
Evan, you have a quick question?
I'm in a job, I'm doing fine, I'm happy, but recruiters reach out to me. And then, you look at the job and you say, I don't think so right now, but thanks. And now something's changed in the situation in leadership, or they want to go in a different direction. You're like, I got to get out of here. How do you go back to that recruiter?
Always reach back out to them via email. That's honestly usually the fastest. Or if you have their phone number, leave a message. But I will tell you, most recruiters are on the phone talking to people. They've got scheduled phone interviews. So you'll probably get a faster response via email than them, I'll return that call. But I highly recommend you do that.
And I would probably encourage you to have a good subject line, not let's reconnect or something like that. Maybe talk about what your specific skills are. CISSP guy we talked last week. A good subject line to break through the noise of your inbox is going to be important. Anything else?
I'll just highlight more on what he said first. I responded to the recruiter. Mm-hmm. That is important. You never know when you're going to need to reach back out, or when you might have a referral. So respond to those recruiters, however irrelevant or relevant it is, because that's a history. And when you do reach back out, I'm going to see that history that we have communicated. You did respond to my email or whatever it might be, message on LinkedIn.
Leslie, Kearstin, Larry, thank you so much. So thank you all three so much, very much.